But what's referred to as the real-life superhero movement or subculture really started rolling around 2005, 2006. And it was through the beauty of the internet. It pretty much started as a chat discussion on a forum. People were like, why has no one tried to be a superhero themselves? You know, Batman doesn't have any superpowers. I mean, actually he does. He's a billionaire fictional character. And then someone was like, well, you know, actually there was like Captain Sticky, he did something, and there was a Super Barrio, he did something like that. And it just snowballed in the great way that the internet does. And soon there was a forum dedicated to real-life superheroes, and real-life superheroes were multiplying mouse click by mouse click. So, my introduction, and I will never forget this day. This has happened to me a couple times in my life, and I would say it's very similar to falling in love or something like that. I was sitting on the bus, I was reading the Shepherd Express. There's a column in it called News of the Weird. And there's a very short blurb, and all it said was, hey, there's these people called real-life superheroes, and they're dressing up like superheroes and going out on patrols and trying to stop crime. I was like, what? And then I kind of didn't think about it, but then, you know, I got off the bus and I was in the grocery store. I was like, wait a minute, what the F does that mean? What are they talking about, real-life superheroes? And then for the rest of the day I was thinking about it, and I got on the internet and I fell down a classic internet rabbit hole, and soon I was reading patrol logs, watching homemade videos, reading short news stories. So I was like, oh, this is good. And of course I've been a lifelong superhero fan, and I'm a freelance writer. So I was like, I wonder if please, I hope this is true, that there is a Milwaukee real-life superhero, because if there is, I want to meet him and I want to write an article about him for Milwaukee Magazine or Shepherd Express or something like that. So I did find such a person named the Watchman. This is me years after I met him. He's in the middle there with the red costume. This is Blackbird. He's another Milwaukee real-life superhero. I found him on MySpace. This is in 2009. So this is kind of when MySpace and Facebook were changing tides. And I sent him a message and I said, I'm very interested in being with you and finding out what this is all about. And we arranged to meet up in a city park one night. And so it was very cold. It was one of those great, Wisconsin in March, really cold one day, really warm the next day. Very cold that night, I'm shivering, trying to keep warm. And then all of a sudden he's there in person. I was like, wow, it takes you a minute to really process that, okay, this is not something now that I'm watching on the internet, it's something I'm seeing in person. And we walked around that night a lot, and you know, I was like, is this dude gonna be crazy or what? But a lot of the things he was telling me made a lot of sense to me. And it made me very curious. And so I wrote a short article, and then I was like, my fascination goes further than a 500-word article. So I didn't have a book deal, but what I did was I would work, I would save some money, and then I would fly out to New York and meet the New York Initiative, which is this group here, and spend, 3 or 4 days hanging out with them. And then I'd come home and work some money, work and make money, and I'd take 5 days off and go to Vancouver, where I met Thanatos, and slowly started to have these experiences and put together a book. While I'm doing this, I'm also trying to figure out, how do you write a book? I have no idea. So I started trying to work on putting a book together and selling it, and got rejected over and over again. But the more I was working on it, the better the story was getting. I felt, though, that there was something missing from the book. I was having a lot of interesting experiences. I wasn't having that story where you're like, this is what seals the book. Now you have a full story. And what I wanted to do was see something crazy. That happened to me in Seattle. I met Phoenix Jones, the Guardian of Seattle. There's a lot of things I like about Phoenix Jones. He's very energetic, He's helped people out, he's very passionate. But he also gave me the single most frightening night of my life. So, because there's limited time, I'll give you the shortest version of the story that I can. I'm out on patrol with Phoenix Jones, his teammate Ghost, a videographer named Ryan, who just happens to be along. We're patrolling about 2:30 in the morning in Seattle. We're on top of a hill looking down towards like a parking lot. And there are people fighting. They're punching each other. There's a guy on the ground, the guy's kicking him. And Phoenix is like, whoa! He runs down this hill, right into the middle of this group fighting. One of his weapons is a small fire extinguisher-like thing filled with pepper spray. So he runs into the group and he pepper sprays them. Everyone starts screaming and crying. Pepper spray is not exact science, so it hits the other people in this group. A woman takes off her high heel shoe, begins to pummel Phoenix Jones on the head with the heel of her high heel shoe. The guy starts screaming in Russian. I was like, oh great, now you pissed off a group of Russians. You know, it's not helping the situation. They kind of fall this way, and we back up this way. And then they regroup and attack all of us. And Phoenix Jones pepper sprays them all again. And then they come at us, and I get punched in the face by an angry Russian. I was like, no, don't do that. And then there's like this chaos. This seems to go on forever. It actually went on for like 9 minutes, maybe. Someone's calling 911. This is a chapter of the book. The title is People Fighting and Pepper Spray and Superheroes and I don't know. That's what the guy told 911. I ducked around a pillar, and then I saw there's a street, okay, with traffic, and there's a little island, like concrete island there. I ran over and jumped there because I'm like, this is a safe spot for me, because if these Russians try to attack me, I will push them into traffic and then I'll run the other direction. But then Phoenix Jones runs over and hops onto the island next to me and asks if I'm okay, and I say I'm okay. And then we hear a revving sound. And the Russians have gotten into an SUV, and sure enough they peel out and head towards us because they want to run us over. So he runs one way, I run the other way. I hide behind a pillar, he hides behind some rocks. The police show up, which I was so relieved. I never thought I'd be happy to see police. But the police got out and they're like, Phoenix Jones, tired of playing this game with you, man. And they arrested him. They almost arrested me and let me go. They arrested him, he showed up to court. He was wearing a nice dress shirt and his Phoenix Jones mask. The judge said, take that mask off, it's not allowed in my courtroom. And the charges were dropped. He got a scolding from the city attorney, but the charges were dropped. So it shows you just how wild and crazy a real-life superhero concept can be. Well, that's a big slide, so it's going to take a second. So, was that a typical real-life superhero experience? No. I've had a lot of positive experiences. The person that I showed in Canada, Thanatos, I think he's a wonderful human being. He's in his 60s. He is a Vietnam vet. He does a lot of advocacy work for homeless people in Vancouver. Vancouver has a very large homeless population. So he does regular drops of supplies to homeless people. I think he's especially concerned because he sees a lot of veterans who unfortunately are on the street too. So I joined him for an early morning supply drop-off, and I was like, this seems bad idea to me because he's waking up people at 5 in the morning wearing a green skull mask. But to my surprise, he is a street legend in Vancouver. Everybody knows who he is. So he'd wake people up and he'd be like, Thanatos, I'm so glad to see you. And it was very kind of humbling. I'm like, wow, this guy did it. He became a street legend in Vancouver. He's helping people out. Doesn't need the superhero costume to do it, but that's what works for him. And then in 2013, my book got published, which was a great moment for me. I put a lot of work into it. I have copies here available for $5, by the way, if you'd like to buy a copy. I've got a bunch of extra ones. So what's happened with the real-life superheroes over the last 5 years? Well, I would say it's like any subculture. There's people who join it and drop out. It evolves a little bit. Some people are in it for the long haul. But so Dark Guardian is someone that I wrote about in my book. He was part of the New York Initiative. He's a very early real-life superhero. He's kind of switched his focus now. He's a member of the Guardian Angels, which I always kind of describe real-life superheroes as being sort of a costume version of the Guardian Angels. This happened just last month in Chicago. There's a real-life superhero from Minneapolis named Razorhawk. He's right here. He's organized this kind of project where real-life superheroes team up and hand out supplies to homeless people and do a sort of patrol together. So this took place in Chicago. And it's great because, you know, I'm somewhat in touch with real-life superheroes, not as much as I used to be, of course. So I recognize Razorhawk from Minneapolis. This is Geist. He's been doing this a long time from Rochester. I've met him several times. Night Vision was from, he's from Rochester, Minnesota. He's from Rockford, Illinois. Crusader Prime and Wraith I met before. They're from Chicago. Some of these guys, though, I don't know who they are. So there's a continuous flow of new real-life superheroes. What have I been doing since 2013? Well, I had my second book published in 2015. I took kind of a similar tactic where I traveled around and met paranormal investigators. Sometime I'll tell you about the second most frightening night of my life, which is when I went out with a Bigfoot hunter. We did not find Bigfoot, but we did see a UFO. And then I just wrapped up what will be my third book. The working title is The End. I just turned it in last month. It's going to be published early 2019. That is about my experiences meeting doomsday preppers and a wide variety of people and their ideas about how the world will end. And now, I'm trying to finish up a project that I've been working on for a long time. It originated with while I was working on Heroes in the Night. And I met a very intense and interesting conspiracy theorist who is also a comic book fan. So he has a RLSH persona of sorts. He's just had a very interesting life, and his life has intersected with a lot of interesting people and conspiracy theories. So, I got a couple minutes. Does anyone have any questions about real-life superheroes? Oh, yes, go ahead.
Is that the guy who lives like in a giant warehouse? I feel like that's ringing a bell for me, and now I want to...
He has his own superhero headquarters that he's made out of like it's called a Cuisinart hut, like a big, like miniature airplane glider almost. Yeah.
That sounds. I think it's the same guy. Yeah.
And by the way, I think that you will have more information shortly about whatever happened to Milwaukee's own Watchman and where he is now, because I'm going to tell you a secret. I believe he might be sitting in this room. So that's all I have for you. If you'd like to get a copy of my book, they're $5.
One more thing for you before I
Yes.
play it. Where is it you spend most of your nights that all of us should go buy ourselves a fine cold beer at?
Oh, sure. Well, so the many other aspects of my life, I'm also the events manager at the River West Public House. Very cool, cooperatively run bar. Tonight we're doing a cool Cinco de Mayo type of party with a reggae band called The Iguanas. And Voices de la Frontera is doing some activities there too.
Karaoke's on Monday.
Karaoke on Monday, very popular.
Drinks are on Troy.
Thank you.
Yes, if anyone wants a book, $5 is a hell of a deal for the book. I have read it. It's